Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. I have a book review for you today. It's a book that I listened to this month, and it is a very popular book on Book Talk as well as different YouTube channels, and I'm sure you have heard of it. It is Hannah Nicole Manor. Forgive me if I'm mispronouncing her last name. I tried to look up videos of it being said. I listened to it. I couldn't get it. So Hannah Nicole Manor, I hope that is how you pronounce her last name. She did a good job, and it is book one of her series in the series, Assistant to the Villain. This is obviously a very, again, popular book, and it's one that I didn't really have on my list to look forward to reading, but it became available again on the Libby app. I check out the video that I did on that to see how that whole system works, and so yeah, I borrowed it. And I thought, well, hey, I wasn't planning on it, but let me just put it on in the background while I'm going around my daily life. And I really got into it as the story progressed. But let me give you a little bit of background. Again, from what I understand, the story grew out of a series of TikTok videos that Hannah had done where she sort of was acting out what it would be like to be the assistant to this sort of morally gray character that's so prevalent in many of these fantasy novels. And as the videos grew, as the lore grew of these videos, so the story grew in her mind until she finally, yes, produced the book, Assistant to the Villain. And what is the plot here? Well, Evangeline, Evie, has been forced into the role of leader, provider, and really protector of her family. Her father has a horrible sickness that keeps him very, very weak. Her mother came into powers, which is kind of how people get their powers, through a very excruciating, painful, stressful situation. And through the birth of her younger sister, I guess snapped would be the word, but she got her powers and tragically couldn't control them and ended up killing Evie's brother. Through that tragedy, mom abandoned the family. And so Evie is having to raise her sister, care for her father, and do all of the stuff for her family. Well, she's recently come out of a job that we'll learn about later in the book, and she really needs employment. And while she's going through the woods one day, back and forth from town, who does she run into but the infamous villain of the kingdom, who good King Benedict and his noble knights have been trying to hunt down for a long time. And she essentially gets tangled up, literally, with the villain as he is being pursued by the knights, the guards. And he essentially just brings her with, right? You're coming with because you've seen me and we're going. And so through that initial experience, he protects her. He keeps her safe, and they begin to have a conversation. Even initially in this first meeting, we find that Evie is one who in stressful situations just begins running her mouth and talking. And the villain is not that way. And so through it, where she thinks she's going to be killed because she's seen him, she actually sees the manor, the castle that he lives at as he is escaping. Shockingly, though, to her, he offers her a job to be his personal assistant. And in a moment of weakness, she says yes, because he offers her stability, he offers her protection, and he offers her good money. So she says yes, because she needs to provide for her family. Well, the job is extremely vague up front, and this was one of the things that I struggled to kind of get into. Was we're just sort of told that he's a villain, he kills people, mutilates them, and that's just not really explained other than that. And Evie is just sort of our place character for us, right? We are kind of Evie in the story. It's kind of her perspective. There are two POVs, and it goes back and forth between the villain and Evie. But when Evie is the POV character, we are just as in the dark as she is. And that was something that I kept asking myself, like, why are we doing this? Like, what led us to this point? It was one of the big criticisms that I found about the book, is that Hannah doesn't do really much world building at all. Towards the end of the story, you'll get a little bit of background. In Evie, you get a little bit of background, but like there's no world building. And so you just have to sort of accept the fact that Evie is the administrative assistant and she is beginning to run the enterprise that is the villain's manor, with trying to attack the king's forces, trying to intercept the king's supply chains, trying to escape, trying to steal magical beasts from the king that the villain is engaging in. But what it turns into is less fantasy series in the sense, and it turns more into literally the Office TV show, where you have all of these characters who begin to be developed, and they're literally like Office dynamic characters. So who are some of these characters? Well, Evie is obviously, so the Office, I mean like Steve Carell, I mean Pam and Jim and Dwight, like that Office, like this is kind of the feel. So you have Evie, who is the sensible one. She is probably like your Jim character, but she's very much, very, very peppy. She's very much, oh man, I'm forgetting the girl that dates Ryan. Her. She's kind of a combination. And Becky is your kind of intense HR, follow the rules, no nonsense, really HR employee. They have this ongoing rivalry where they do not like each other, they do not understand each other, their minds work in completely different ways. You have Blade, who is the dragon trainer and sort of the man who cares for all of the mythic beasts that they capture. We find out that he lied on his resume in order to get the job and very much knows nothing about what he's doing. He actually has a book that's literally like how to train mythic beasts for dummies. And so Blade is hysterical. He's like the source of all of Becky's frustrations about what's happening at the manor. And yet we find out a little later that he is crushing big time on Becky, which is just hysterical. We have Tatiana, who is the healer for the villain and all of his employees. And then we find out a little later that the villain has some family connections that we'll get to in a second. So we're into the business of attacking the king, trying to be not attacked by the king's forces, when a plot is found out that there is a bomb that is placed in the villain's office, in his desk. And Evie finds the bomb and, like any normal, sensible person, picks it up and begins running with it out of the palace, out of the castle, and tries to go as far as she can. And she's doing really well until her foot gets caught and she trips. Well, the villain has a way of knowing when Evie is endangered. And this sort of slow burn of their dynamic is progressing slowly through the story to where he really wants to protect her and care for her. And knowing that she's in danger, that bomb exploding, he protects her, he saves her. That really galvanizes for him the first time in his life that he's actually like felt strongly about someone. And so from there, their sort of slow burn relationship begins to work. And everyone in the palace and in the manor sort of begins to notice and is very much aware, like, okay, they seem to like one another. So that sort of goes on. And then the villain is now trying to find out who in his employment has betrayed him. So that's sort of the main plot of the book, who has betrayed the villain. So he kind of begins systematically going through people, and Evie helps him. By way of introduction, a couple other characters. That evening after the bomb explosion, the villain takes Evie home in order to just make sure that she gets home safe. He actually meets her younger sister, Lissa, and she's like, "Hi, what's your name?" And he just sort of introduces himself as Tristan. And Evie's thinking like, oh, he kind of thought of that name pretty quickly. He can think well on his feet. And later he goes like, well, that's my name. And she's like, you just told my sister your real name, like my younger sister who will tell all of her little friends. And he's like, I mean, nobody knows who I am. So that was so funny to me. So they meet, whatever. There's a couple other side characters that we meet. We meet a man named Otto Warson, who is Evie's former employer. And we kind of find that he is a scumbag, a sleazeball. And we meet some of Tristan's family members. We meet his sister Claire, who has a romantic history with Tatiana. And we meet his brother Malcolm, who also has some things involved, and they get brought in when Tristan's trying to find who tried to kill him. So there was a lot that I liked about this story. Obviously, the more he learns about who is involved in this plot, the more the plot develops. So that's all I'll go as far as that. But I love the witty banter, very funny between the characters. I love the office dynamics. My goodness, that was fun. And then the slow burn of Evie and Tristan is, I mean, it's just fun. It's just a sappy romance, right? And so as the story progresses, Evie and Tristan develop in their characters. But what's interesting is to see how Evie develops in accepting the morally grayness of what Tristan does, and Tristan develops the care and the concern and the genuine love that Evie brings so naturally to the table. So they grow based off of one another. And I thought that was really well done. There's obviously a few things that weren't my favorite. Again, the world building I bring up, I really would have loved to know a little bit more of the playing ground before we jumped into it. And this is something I bring up in a lot of these modern books, like the modern explicit language. It just takes me out of the story. And Hannah did such a good job with making me feel like, sure, this is an episode of The Office in a fantasy world, in a medieval fantasy world. But just like, why couldn't we have been a little bit more creative with some of those explicit statements? Like, we could have used them, but let's just lean into the world that we're in. What would those characters have exclaimed in moments of stress or moments of pain? Why do they have to be modern, real world explicit? That seems to be an ongoing frustration I have with a lot of modern fantasy books. Maybe I'm wrong. Let me know if you disagree with me. The story ends very much on a cliffhanger, plot twist. And she sets it up really well for the book following. There are 4 books now in the series. The 4th is forthcoming, I believe. So definitely a series that will continue. What we do find out, though, is that there is way more to the villain than we knew. There's way more to really all of the characters in the manor than we assumed. And even Evie's family, there's things that we need to learn about what brought them to this point. So for a breakout novel, she did a good job. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. I could be inclined to bump it up to 3.5. It's kind of a cozy fantasy. I don't know that I would exactly put it completely up to the cozy fantasy level. I think it is still a fantastic story as in fantasy, but 3 to 3.5 I thought was adequate for the story. She did a good job. We'll see how it goes now moving forward. So let me know, have you read Assistant to the Villain? What do you think about it? Do you agree with my take? Do you disagree? And for a breakout novel, not too shabby. Thanks so much for watching. If you're interested, you can like and subscribe, and we'll continue on with some more books, some more discussions in future videos. Thank you.